I feel like we could do this segment every day, but the numbers continue to get worse and worse and worse, so we have to keep talking about it. Let's go ahead and put the latest from Ed O'Keefe. This is details from a CBS News YouGov poll. His editorial here is there's large and growing pessimism about the national economy, the stock market, and inflation. In fact, outlook on the cost of things gets the most pessimism of the items tested, following by pessimism about the national economy. Eric, keep this up on the screen because I want to read off these numbers. So he has up here the comparison between when these same things were tested back in September of 2021, not all that long ago, versus now. So now we have 77% saying they're pessimistic about the cost of goods and services. 77%. Back in September, it was still bad. It was 70%, but it's gotten worse. National economy, you now have 68% saying they're pessimistic. Back in September, that was 58%. So it was bad. It's gotten a lot worse. Same story with the stock market. 67% now say they are pessimistic about the stock market. That compares to 49% back in September of 2021. In terms of people's sentiment about the president himself, let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen, also from Ed O'Keefe. He says he gets relatively, although also not good, higher marks for caring about people than he does for being quick to react to events. Overwhelmingly, 65% of people say that when important things come up, Biden is slow to react. That's versus 35% who say that he addresses things right away. Now, O'Keefe's spin is that he's like, people feel like he cares about you. Not really. 56% say that he either doesn't care much or not at all about people like them. It's just those numbers aren't quite as bad as the numbers on when important things come up, Biden is slow to react. And I just think that's hard to deny, Saagar, frankly.
Yes.
I mean, this has been, even among their allies, they admit that this has been a very reactive administration. There isn't a sense that there's a plan, a vision, that they're anticipating problems and getting out ahead of them. It very much seems like, you know, events happen and they're sort of buffeted by them. And after too long of a wait, under a lot of public pressure, maybe they'll move to act. The baby formula crisis is a perfect example. They admitted they knew this was a problem
in February
for literally months, and yet it took to getting to the point where, you know, babies were having to literally be admitted to the hospital because they couldn't get the nutrition that they needed, especially babies that needed special formulas, for them to actually act and do anything. So I think it's pretty hard to deny that, you know, whatever you think of the overall direction, that they've been very reactive and it's been very slow and sort of on the back foot in terms of responding to emergent events in the world and here in the country.
I think the hardest number for him, I think cares about people like me has always been one of the most important questions in all of politics. And Biden cares a lot about people like you. A lot, 19%, some 25. Not much, 22, not at all, 34. What's the biggest number there? And then what's the second biggest number? Like, when you point to these things and the, you know, basic majority of people say that Biden does not seem to care about people like me and then is slow to react, which is obviously something hard to define, but it's a vibe almost in a certain way. It just is generally true in the terms of how he's reacting to major events. I'm doing my whole monologue on this, on exactly what Biden could do literally right now in order to lower the price of gas. Relatively bipartisan, I think, in both of these solutions, and yet not a single one of them has even been discussed, has no bill on the floor, nothing in the administration, and the record price hits the record every day for the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
What's happening? I mean, you know, gas is $4.50 a gallon nationally, and yet there is no discussion. We're heading into summer. Rolling blackouts are on the horizon in Texas, in Indiana, and in California. We have major grid issues and stuff that the military and others should be working on right now. What's happening? I mean, these are, and by the way, if you think that the Biden approval rating is, you know, as low as it is right now, the dog days of summer, you know, mid-July, late July, rolling blackouts, and $6.20 gas nationally, what's going to happen? I mean, you're dead. I mean, Doug Mastriano will be governor then. Just go ahead and watch out for that. So I just think that all of this is so obviously true, and that's why the reason we did this segment is because the White House response to this is insane. Put this up there on the screen. The White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, tweets this, quote, "I hate to spoil the narrative, but this poll shows POTUS approval rating moving up. and solid public confidence on the two biggest problems that he inherited, COVID and jobs. And what they're pointing to is that, yeah, he has a high, percent of approval on COVID and, on jobs, kind of.
It's, okay, on COVID, it's 53-47.
Yeah.
An issue that, has really moved to the back burner in terms of people's top concern.
Nobody cares about COVID.
Jobs, 52-48. On the approval rating thing, it's particularly dishonest. It's quote unquote moved up to 44. It was 42% last month, within the margin of error.
So you're within the margin and you're below 50 and you're also the most unpopular president of our modern times, well, or at least tied with Donald Trump. That takes skill. I mean, in terms of how bad that is. And at least Trump, what they would always say is they'd be like, yeah, but he has a great approval rating amongst Republicans, which actually did turn out to mean something whenever it came to Republicans who were going to back him no matter what.
Yeah, that's
Half
true.
of Democrats don't even want Biden to run anymore.
Yeah.
They don't approve of the job that he's doing. They think that he's not paying attention to the major problems in the economy. So you have no base enthusiasm. There's not a lot of people out there who identify as Biden stans. There is no organic Biden movement. And I guess, the whole reason he was elected was simply to, lessen the drama and make the trains run on time. He said he knew a lot about trains. And yet every single thing in the economy seems chaotic. And the worst part is he does not seem to be relentlessly focused on it. And, I think that the visuals on this stuff are really bad, especially we've talked about the Ukraine aid. You could support it if you want to. I think it's way too big and doesn't have enough constraining powers on it. But $40 billion that was passed bipartisan to Ukraine. That was easy, not just with Congress, but in terms of the administration, where their focus is the baby formula shortage is happening. We're completely scrambling gas, diesel, food. I mean, so many of these other things. I'm not saying many Republicans would vote for big packages for all of those, but at the very least, the administration should be focused on them because the people out there are at the very least buying a lot of Republican messaging on this stuff. And why wouldn't they if they were to point to the fact that the alternative is literally nothing done by the executive who has had a long time in order to deal with these things and continues to have the space to make it a public conversation? I mean, why is he in Asia right now? I don't get it. I'm not saying the Asian alliances, I think they're probably the most important things in the world, but why are you on some grand foreign tour? This is the main focus of yours. And on foreign affairs, he actually still only has some 55% approval rating,
Yeah, he gets decent approval rating on his handling of Ukraine, whatever. I mean, the media has really backed him up on that.
That's
I think
true.
that explains a lot of it. I think on the Asia trip, what the administration would say is this deals directly with these supply chain issues and focusing on the long term to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But to your point, you got some really short-term immediate fires that you need to deal with right here and now. So I think voters are probably not going to reward him for that longer term play. Also devastating within these numbers is the fact that the demographic group by age that gives him the worst marks is the youngest voters. So once again, it's voters under 30. 66% of voters under 30 say he's too slow to react. And they also gave him very bad marks on cares about people like me. I think your point about that one is really important because that was a core strength of Biden.
That was huge.
Core strength of Biden was basically his record sucks and we didn't like these other things he did and he's verbally incontinent, probably on the decline. But I do feel like he's kind of a genuine person that has got that everyman vibe that gets what my family's going through and I have a general affection for him. The fact that those numbers now have fallen off a cliff that really is devastating because that used to be a sort of key strength for him. As far as the Ron Klain attempt to spin these numbers, which is hilarious, it reminded me of, remember what he said after Macron was able to win the French presidency? He tweeted then, an interesting observation, just FYI, President Macron appears to have secured a double-digit victory over Le Pen at a time when his approval rating is 36%. Basically saying oh, see, there's a path to win the presidency back, win re-election, even when your approval rating is extremely low. So clearly this is the path that Klain and probably others around him have decided is the way for Biden to get back in the White House next time around. People aren't happy. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to be in love with him. But can he be a superior alternative to Donald Trump, where people show up to vote for him not because they really want to, but because they feel like they have no other choice? I mean, that's a very dim view of politics, especially this, early in the presidency, to already have basically given up on having a high approval rating when he came in with a high approval rating. So it's not like it's not possible, but that clearly seems to be the track that his people are focused on.
Good luck. And, basically only Trump running a campaign purely focused on Stop the Steal would be able to save you if that were the case.
True.
And
Which
by the way,
may be what they
that
face.
might happen.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
That's what we deserve. Okay.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.